Hello, this is Robert Messina, and I came across a thought of where are we grafted into the holy olive tree? Exactly where? And my findings are we're going to be grafted into the tribe of Ephraim. I'm going to be explaining a lot of why I think that, and there's a lot of interesting things that come about out of this topic. The roots of the holy olive tree are, as I understand it, are all the descendants of Abraham. They are the roots. Okay, from Adam to Noah, from Noah to Abraham. It's basically a pretty thick root that roots the holy olive tree. We have Abraham. See the trunk of the tree, where the roots meet the soil and the roots meet the trunk. That beginning is Abraham himself. His name starts out with Abram. Father sees a nation, and then he gets told that his descendants are going to be more than the stars in the sky. And he believes God. And because he believed God, but Abraham had Isaac, and Isaac had Jacob, the 12 sons of Israel. There they are. They're all on there. And that is the beginning. Those branches, those 12 branches, are the beginning of the holy olive tree. And Joseph, which means he shall add, has two sons, and those two sons are called Ephraim and Manasseh. And I'm going to point out that Ephraim is the branch that all the Gentiles and all believers in the church, the 12 disciples were not Gentiles, they were Jewish, but they were added to the church. And the church, the multitudes of the church, was grafted into Ephraim. That's the way I see it. They are still part of their tribe, but if Simon Peter was of the tribe of Simeon, that I don't know. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. Genesis 46, 26, and 27. All the souls that came with Jacob into Egypt, which came out of his loins, besides Jacob's sons' wives, all the souls were 66. Now, the sons of Joseph, which were born in Egypt, were two souls, which was Ephraim and Manasseh. And all the souls of Jacob, which came into Egypt, total was 70. Now, that's so you have to add to the 66, you have to add Jacob himself, Joseph, who was already there, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born there. The thing that's interesting here is Dan has one child. Okay, Joseph has just two children. Okay, so that's a little interesting, and was especially when we looked at the next slide, because in the next slide we see Dan has 62,700 that are available for war 20 years and up. These are the numbers that the tribes allow for soldiers, for men of war from 20 years and up. And Dan has the second most numbers, 62,700. Now Judah has he has the most. He's got 74,600. Ephraim and Manasseh don't have too many. I mean, Ephraim beats out Benjamin, but Benjamin beats out Manasseh. So Manasseh, it looks like, he's got the least, 32,200. Anyway, That doesn't mean, and also you notice that they don't number Levi's sons. And that's because Levi's sons are not allocated to war. So they're not numbered. And they're commanded not to number them. So that's why we don't know how many. But we know that Levi had three: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. To partly understand why I'm thinking that the branch that is used in the holy olive tree to graft, that we are grafted into, is Ephraim's branch. It's sort of like a lot of history. We have to know a lot of history about what happened to Ephraim and the northern tribes back in 2,700 years ago. Okay, we have to go back that far, when Assyria takes over tribes of the northern kingdom. And they lose their identity. And that's why they're lost. Nobody even knows they're Jewish anymore. They don't do anything they did when they were in Israel. And we're going to go over that a little bit. Hosea 9:17, my God will cast them away, because they did not hearken unto him, and they shall be wanderers among the nations. Let's hone in on what they were doing. Circa 732 to 722 BC, Hosea was king of Samaria. They didn't have a successor. The whole monarchy was abolished. There were no kings after Hosea. He was captured. The people were captured. All of the northern 10 tribes were captured, and they were taken by the Assyrian king, and they were brought into Assyria, and they were, it says in 2 Kings 17:6, in the 9th year of Hosea, Assyria dwelled in Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah, in cities of the Medes. All right, so that's what happened then. And so the picture is Israel is dwelling in the northern tribes. Israel is captured and placed into Assyrian cities, and those that were living in Assyria were placed into Samaria and the places of the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom. So everything got swapped, and Israel lost its identity, as I said, and we're gonna see more about that. A big piece of the olive tree got just cut off, but things grow back. And that's the reason why we're able to be grafted in to the holy olive tree. The thing that we have to also know is that there's a branch, and Jesus is that branch. Isaiah 11:1, there shall come forth a rod. A rod is a tool by a shepherd. So I think that rod that comes forth is the good shepherd out of the stem of Jesse. And the stem of Jesse, Jesse fathered David, and David was a branch that grew out of his roots, and Jesus came through David. So that's a heavy branch in this holy olive tree, Jesus. And anyway, so you can see the colors there. I'm lining up the sons of Jacob with the 12 apostles. So Simeon was lined up with Simon Peter, Levi, Andrew, Reuben, James of Alphaeus. And you could see everything there. But you see here that Joseph had Ephraim and Manasseh, and Ephraim was a fruitful branch. He doesn't get an apostle, and Manasseh, which means not forgotten, he gets an apostle after Judas Iscariot loses his apostle, and Matthias comes in, and I kind of associate it with not with Dan anymore. I assigned that with Manasseh. I could be wrong about that, but you see the little asterisk there, Judas and Matthias. Judas Iscariot is no longer there. Matthias is. It's another mystery. I don't feel like going that trail right now. It's an interesting one, though. Gad goes with Simon the Canaanite. Issachar goes with Philip. You see here, Issachar is almost white. It goes with Philip, almost white. And Zebulun goes with Bartholomew. And Thomas goes with Benjamin. This next one slide is very interesting because looking at this from the left side, we already know that through Matthew that there are 42 generations from Abraham to Joseph, the stepfather of Jesus. And there's 28 generations from David to Zedek. 28 is 4 times 7. So there's 6 sevens from Abraham to stepfather Joseph. And there's 28 generations from David to stepfather Joseph. 4 sevens. Okay, but the 42 number is 6 sevens. And that's Son of God, Son of Man. From David through Nathan, 4 Josephs in that line. We have 7 generations. We have 7 generations to a Joseph. And from that Joseph, we get 7 generations to another Joseph. And from that Joseph, we get 7 generations to a Jose. It's Jose. It's almost Spanish, right? But it's not Spanish for Joseph. It's Jose, Hebrew. It means sustained of Yah. From Jose to Salathiel, we get another 7. That's 21 to Salaziel. And then from Salaziel to Mattathias, we get another 7. So that's 28. 4 7 so far. And from Mattathias to another Joseph, we get another 7, which is 35 now. And from the 35th descendant named Joseph, there's another 7 generations to another Joseph, who is the grandfather of Jesus. Okay? That's the grandfather on his mother's side. His name is Joseph. So his stepfather was named Joseph. His grandfather was named Joseph, and he had 4 more Josephs in the line of his mother on his mother's side. I just think that's interesting. Okay, so let's go to the next thing here. Let's go to Genesis 48, 19 and 20. Now this is Jacob talking. Jacob is blessing not Joseph, because he blesses Joseph in the next chapter, 49. But he blesses Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, in 48 before he blesses that. So Genesis 48, 19 and 20. I, Jacob, know it. I know it. Manasseh also shall become a people. Now this is Joseph not liking the idea that Jacob is blessing Ephraim first, and Manasseh is the oldest, and Manasseh is the firstborn, and Jacob says, "I know, I know it. Manasseh also shall become a people. He also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater, and Ephraim seed shall become a multitude of nations. So that's where I'm hanging my hat on. Ephraim is where the nations are grafted in, right there. Okay? That's where I'm saying it's coming from. And Ephraim represents somebody that, well, we're going to get to who a lot about Ephraim's character and nature and everything, and what he goes through in life, what his descendants go through, are going to be spoken about here. All right, so now we're going to see a clip from Juan. I have a video I put out a couple of years ago in defense of Ron Wyatt, who discovered the Ark of the Covenant, and a lot of people don't believe that, and because they didn't believe it, I created that video, and I got a clip that I want to show you, and I cut it in another piece, and I'm going to put that last piece or towards the end, the very end of this video. All right, but the clip is going to begin at disbelief by people disbelieving Ron Wyatt, and it was, it blows my mind that they can't understand that this is so true, because that's why I want you to watch the clip, because the clip should explain it. I don't know, but also Ron Wyatt gives information about what he found. He found the Ark of the Covenant underneath Golgotha. Okay, and Golgotha is where Jesus was crucified, and he found the Ark of the Covenant, and the angels allowed him to open the Ark and see, and he saw the 2 tablets of Moses were in there, and he saw the you'll have to watch the clip, and there's a lot to it. I'm just to keep this short. The main 2 things he saw was tablets of Moses, and Jesus' blood was on the western side of the mercy seat of the ark that was in there. Okay, and he pointed out that the cross was placed directly about 20 feet above that cave, and there's just a lot of information about this, and again, the clip is going to help out. So I don't want to say too much, except for the fact that those 2 things, the tablets of Moses and the blood was taken to a lab, and the lab confirmed that it was human blood, and there was only 1 male chromosome, and everything else was from the mother. So I think that the 2 witnesses are going to represent Moses and Elijah. Why do I say that? Because the description of them talk about working miracles. One set of those miracles was things that Moses was doing, and the other set was things that Elijah was doing. So that's why I think it was Moses and Elijah. When on the transformation on the mount, the disciples thought that they should make a tabernacle for Moses and Elijah and Jesus, and they were told not to. Listen to Jesus. Moses and Elijah appearing is prophecy, and why wouldn't we be able to do that, to see that, to believe that? Sometimes he wants you to believe the report. I mean, Thomas didn't believe the report. He had to be shown, and that was a negative for the faith of Thomas. Thomas had good faith. He was an apostle. I mean, he wasn't a nobody. He was an apostle. He believed. He just didn't believe that. That's all. He had a weak spot. We all do. The real side of the crucifixion. Oh, well, in the late 1800s, General Gordon pointed out that the place of the skull, or Golgotha, or Calvary, close to the Garden Tomb, which General Gordon also cited. So Ron was in agreement with somebody 100 years prior. All right, and that same guy, Gordon, predicted that the Ark of the Covenant was under the Mount Golgotha, just like Ron Wyatt is establishing. So he wasn't the only one or the first one to know about this. He knew about it. But it just didn't dawn on him until a supernatural thing happened. Ron was walking with a staff member of the Israeli Antiquities who was friendly to him. And as they're passing Golgotha, Ron's arm went up and he pointed to the spot where the Ark of the Covenant was located, which was right underneath Golgotha, the place of the skull. And then Ron put his arm down, and he realized he just said something, and it was a word of knowledge, you could say. He was gifted with the word of knowledge for that moment, and he has never really experienced that in his life before. And I think he said nor afterwards. So the real side of the crucifixion, apparently the cave containing the Ark of the Covenant, so that Christ's blood would drip onto the mercy seat. Oh, like Ron Wyatt could even think about that. How could a man think about that? That's something that you wouldn't never think about. Never. It wouldn't come across your mind. It never came across my mind, but when it did, it really, truly made sense. What actually bothered me in the past, before I knew this, was his precious blood is going to come down, drip down, and just go into the dirt? His precious blood was just going to go into the dirt? And Job says, O earth, cover not my blood. And I think that was prophetic. His blood wasn't covered up. There was an earthquake. You read about the earthquake. The earthquake made a crack. They do things like that, earthquakes. And it was a crack right where the post was, and it went down only about 20, not more than 20 feet down. And the ark happened to be right there to collect that blood on top of the mercy seat on the western side, because the priests were instructed to sprinkle on the eastern side. This was found on the western side, his blood, which was collected, and angels were there. And what, you don't think there's angels? Another thing, people, angels. Like entertaining angels unawares, that's a verse. Gabriel, didn't he speak to Zechariah? I mean, aren't there angels? There are. In particular, to protect the Ark of the Covenant. You would expect angels. You have cherubim on both sides, protecting. Nobody could even touch the ark, because it was so holy. You couldn't even touch it. You had to carry it with the post. Four Levites had to carry it. Okay, then the next bullet is an actual sample of Christ's blood with chromosomes allegedly still visible under a microscope. Allegedly, he says. It was taken to an Israeli lab. I mean, and they are the ones that made the proclamation. He didn't make it. They did. They had no idea. They asked Ron, whose blood is this? Because there was one Y chromosome for the male. Everything else was from the female. Whose blood is this? It's the blood of your Messiah. And he chokes when he says it. And I choke. This is what we're talking about now. And I believe this is going to be Elijah. The two witnesses of the Elijah side of the witness is going to be the blood.
Good evening, Ron. Thank you very much for all three for seminars. Wonderful, thank you. My question is that you said that you had the blood of our Lord examined by the Israelis.
That's correct.
What was their determination of that?
Okay. Now, we won't be able to take second questions. I'm sorry if you're on your second one, please just step out. I love you, but we're running out of time. Real quickly, okay. Dried blood is dead blood. Everybody knows that, all right? They can test the blood of the pharaohs, the mummies of the pharaohs, all right? There's certain things they can do. They cannot get a chromosome count by any method I'm familiar with, all right? Things keep changing. I don't profess to know everything. However, there's no way I know that you can get a chromosome count out of dead blood. You can get a DNA and some other things, but not a chromosome count, all right? That's done by living white blood cells. Now then, first of all, in this analysis, I took the blood into a laboratory in Israel. I asked one of the people I work with in antiquities, where is a good laboratory that does reliable work? And they said, such and such, such and such. I took it. I just said, please examine this blood and tell me what you can tell me about it. All right? They said, well, look, we're going to reconstitute it. We're going to put it in normal saline and keep it at body temperature for 72 hours with gentle swirling. All right, that's their business. That's great. I said, now I want to be there when you check it out. They said, fine. So I was back. They checked it out. I said, now, they said it's human blood. We can tell that. They did whatever tests they need to do. And then I said, take some of the white blood cells and put them in a growth medium and keep them at body temperature for 48 hours. And they said, well, that'll do no good because it's dead blood. I said, would you please do that for me? And they said, okay, we'll do it. So anyway, I said, I want to be there when you take it out and examine it. So I was back there. They took it out, examined it under a microscope, and the one technician called the other one over there, and then they called the boss over there, and they were talking Hebrew a mile a minute there for a little bit, and they looked at me and they said, Mr. Wyatt, this human blood only has 24 chromosomes in it. Everybody else has 46. You see, 23 from your mother, 23 from your father, 22 autosomes from your mother, 22 autosomes from your father. You get an X from your mother, you may get an X or a Y from your father, all right? This blood had 23 chromosomes from the mother's side, one Y chromosome only. You see, the child could not have developed if they hadn't had the autosomes from the mother. So all of his physical characteristics were determined by his mother's side of the family, her autosomes. His maleness was determined by this one Y that came from a source, not a human male. Then they said, this blood is alive. And then they said, whose blood is this? I said, it's the blood of your Messiah. And I assure you, those men's lives have changed. You're welcome.
Side of the witness, on the two witnesses that are going to witness for 3.5 years in the first 3.5 years, and we are going to see them, and you are going to hear about these two items: the tablets of Moses that were found in the ark by Ron Wyatt, and nobody else was allowed. You're going to have to believe. Happy are those, and he says to Thomas, you believe because you see. Happy are those who believe and they can't see. So you're better off believing what is told to you that does make sense. And you are serving a God who does know how to do miracles. He's good at miracles. Everything he said in creation was a miracle. There wasn't light until he said there should be light. Everything you see right now is a miracle from God. So there's nothing, you cannot tell me that this couldn't happen. You can't tell me. I mean, you can tell people that don't believe, and those people will believe you. Somebody that don't believe will believe that it can't happen. But not me, and not a lot of people out there that know God is a God of miracles. But these guys are parading around as they have answers. I don't see how they have what I'm reading here. I don't see answers. I see negative answers. Well, let's look at the first one here. And this is Revelation 11:3. And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. So they are going to be witnessing the first half. That's the first half. Then they're going to be killed in the 43rd month that follows. They're going to be killed. According to the words, they're going to be dead 3.5 days. Not going to be buried in nothing. They're just going to be dead lying there. Okay, now let's go to Zechariah. Well, Zechariah talks about two olive trees, and the middle of the two olive trees, there's a menorah. Not all the details that the menorah, as the menorah described in Exodus, but it gives you 7 lamps, and this lampstand is seated between 2 olive trees. Now, I think that the 2 olive trees represent the 2 witnesses, which represent Moses and Elijah. Now, Moses was the candlestick, represent the Old Testament books of the menorah, and Elijah would represent the 27 New Testament books. There's 66 books altogether. All right? So let's go to Zechariah 4, verses 1 and 2. And the angel that talked with me came again and waked me as a man that is wakened out of his sleep, and said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and the 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, which are on the top thereof. And the 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl, and the other upon the left side thereof. Now, I was going down to Zechariah 4, 11 and 12. Then answered I, and said unto him, What are these 2 olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side thereof? And I answered again and said unto him, What be these two olive branches which through the two golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? So the two olive trees are producing oil for the candlestick, the menorah. And then going down to Zechariah 4:13 and 14, and he answered me and said, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. Then said he, These are the two anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. So there it is, the two witnesses that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. Okay? Okay, now, and today I'm going to discuss with you about the mystery of the menorah. You know, it's kind of been on my mind. I've noticed that there are 66 parts that were instructed to make this menorah out of. They say it's about 100 pounds of gold, one piece. He wanted one piece of gold, and he wanted to make the candlestick out of just one piece, out of a beaten work, as it says there. And the 66 parts, there's actually 22 sets of three. Three pieces represent a budding almond. All right, so there's fruit involved, there's support of the fruit, and there's the flower. The almond bud has the flower on top of it as it's growing. So those three parts, he wanted 27 on one side out of three branches. He wanted three branches on one side, which is and it has a direction, by the way. It was placed east and west, directly east and west in the holy place. It was to be in the holy place. It was across the table of showbread, and it was in front of the altar of incense. I say in front. It was between the altar of incense and the veil, and behind the veil was the ark. It has a very sacred spot, and it has a very big significance. Remember the parable of the oil in your lamp? 5 virgins had oil in their lamp, and 5 didn't. And how important that was, because the door was shut. They couldn't see because they didn't have the oil, and therefore they couldn't find the door. So there were wise and foolish virgins. The wise virgins had oil in their lamp. I mean, that's one of that actually, to me, that is the significance, because to solve the mystery of the menorah, you got to actually look at the Bible and see how it's composed. So when I say that there's 66 parts, there are 66 books in the Bible. You get oil in your lamp, which is in your mind. Reading the Bible, you get the oil. The oil gives you the light. The light lets you see. So you can find your way to know where your bridegroom is when he comes. So that's the whole idea of it. It's actually in there to make sure that there's light in there at nighttime. But they wanted all 7 branches lit at nighttime, and they had I guess to save olive oil, I don't know, but the 4 middle branches were snuffed out in the daytime. 3 branches on the western side and 3 branches on the eastern side. And I'm going to say that the western branch represents the New Testament books, and the eastern branch represents the Old Testament. And the only reason I'm saying that is because the sun comes up in the east and shines light on the earth. And when the sun came up for the ancient Hebrews, they got the light first before the New Testament did come after the Old Testament. So that's why Western for the New Testament and Eastern for the Old. And it's just my statement from that. You can argue with it if you want to. Basic candlestick shaft going down the middle. The candlestick shaft has one extra set, which gives it 12 parts in the middle. 27 on the western side says what? It reminds you that there's 27 books in the New Testament, and you have the rest of the numbers add up to 39, and there's 39 books in the Old Testament. Okay, so that's the whole thing that struck me. And I know, I mean, I'm actually doing this because I'm right now at this point in my life, I am so thankful I have this Bible. It is such an important piece of my life because it gives me understanding of what's going on in life itself. I mean, this is the book that brought me salvation. I mean, people told me this and told me that, but ultimately it was reading this book, that seed that was planted, grow. It made that little mustard seed grow into a nice, healthy plant. And I'm just, it's just, and you know, I could never get tired of it. Never. There's always something in there that I didn't see before. It's a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. It's light. You hear the word light? I don't know. I like it. And I'm thankful. And I see it that there is a mystery about this. I don't know. You know, it's not really mentioned that much. I mean, how many times when was the last time you spoke about the menorah that's in the that's in the holy place? When was the last time you spoke about that? You don't. I don't either. There was a Bible in my house that when I grew up, I never read it. You know, I was 20 years old before I started to read it. And once I started to read it, I couldn't put it down. I could put it down. I mean, can't say that, but my life would be totally different without it. Right now, I'm waiting for Jesus to come back, because because he is described in this book is what the whole thing is. All right, so let's get on to the mystery of this menorah here. Okay, in Exodus 25:31, thou shalt make. Now this is God talking to Moses, and this is one thing that he wants in the holy place. Now, you shall make a candlestick of pure gold. Of beaten work shall the candlestick be. So, in other words, you do have things that are said in the Old Testament that are agreed to in the New. You are seeing things from Isaiah that Zechariah says too. And in other words, it's made up of many prophets, it describes things that happen, things that God has done. The first book of creation. It's amazing what God has done, especially when you think about that. He said it. He said, "Let there be light." There was no light. He said, "Let there be light," and there's light. That's what I'm talking about. And we're talking about light right now, which is light is one of the most. How would you like it without it? How would you like life without it? That's what I'm talking about. Without this Bible, I wouldn't have light. I wouldn't have the light of life in my life. I would have no understanding. I would be a fool to go. I would be walking around like a fool. Like I said, I'm doing this video. What impressed me is the strong feeling I have that God gave me that. I mean, I didn't grow up in Russia where, in communist Russia, where you weren't allowed to have one. All right, so let's go on now. Okay, so you're looking at this and you see all these little. I call the bowl foundational, but let me first give you an idea. The budding almond on the tree. This is the best picture. I was looking through Google Images and I found this one. The three parts are a bowl, a knot, and a flower. Now, if you look at the stem, okay, and actually the stem is in there too. Stem goes into a bowl-like shape to give foundation. The almond fruit that grows there. I think of that bowl piece as foundation, and then the knot is growing and it's got the fruit in it of the fruit of the almond, and then you have the flower on top there. Okay, so those are the three parts. This right here, you see the three parts. You see the flower, okay, and then you see the knot as the bud, and the bowl. I put the bowl upside down. And I don't know why I did that. I did it because it just mentally, looking at the bowl at the bottom, it looks like the bowl would need to be that way. So I took the liberty of making it that way, and it's actually, you see in the picture, the bowl goes the other way. So you have three sets on the eastern side, and you have three sets on the western side. And you have the branch shaft candlestick in the center. The three parts have a function of their own, right? Like the bowl is there to be a foundation for the fruit and the flower. Okay, so the bowl is a foundation. All right? And the knot is the fruit itself. So the knot would represent fruit-bearing books, the bowl foundation-bearing foundational books, like the Torah, for example, is foundation. Genesis is a foundation. And then the flower, there are books that tell praise and glory and reflect the beauty of life. The budding almond tree is a very beautiful thing. It has a certain glory. The glory of the flower. Now the glory of the flower is not lasting. There's a greater glory coming, and the book itself. The book is going to go away. Knowledge will pass away. This is all going to pass away when we don't need it anymore. But it's still a good thing now, isn't it? Yeah, I think so, as I said. Now, I mean, some of it was easy. Some of it just fell to place. Like, for example, Genesis as the bowl, as a foundation, and Psalms up in the top of that branch is a praise. That, I mean, but what I'm saying is that when I say that it's a book of praise, it has prophecy in it too. And then it has learning instructions, foundational learning instructions too. But and they all do. They all have that. But there are some that have more than others. Like Genesis is more of a foundation than Psalms is always giving glory and thanks and praise to the things that God has done. And the five books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus. Exodus has got a lot of law, all of the law, all of the instructions to live how God wants us to live is in the foundational books. But there are instructions on how to live in all of them, and there are the fruit that like a prophet. A prophet bears fruit. Prophecy is strengthens your faith the most. When you see it fulfilled, it strengthens your faith the most. Is what I'm saying. Okay, when you hear that 500 years before Jesus was born, the prophet said he was going to be born in Bethlehem. That strengthens your faith. Those kind of things. So the fruit bearing is through the prophecy books. I'm not going to go through every book and say why I put it there as a fruit and not a foundation and then as a praise. I'm not going to do that in this video, but I am going to before I close give a verse or two of the ones that do praise. Now, before the New Testament came, we had the Old Testament, of course, and the final version of the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh. Tanakh has three parts to it, and this basically is where the mystery of the menorah lies. Tanakh has three parts. It's broken up into Torah, the law, the Navim, the prophets, and the Ketuvim, the writings. So the Bible is the former Hebrew Bible was referred to as the Tanakh. Law, instruction, foundation, Navim, prophets, okay, prophets and fruit bearing books. So it had instruction bearing books, fruit bearing books, and praise and glory bearing books. The flower. And anyway, the final version was contained of 16 scrolls. 3 of those 16 scrolls contain multiple books. The Torah, the first scroll, had all 5 books of Moses in the one scroll. It's the biggest scroll there. And then you had the ninth scroll had the prophets. It had the 12 minor prophets. So it was 12 books in the ninth scroll, and then there was the writings were in the 13th scroll and the Megillot, and those are the ones that have praise and it's not, they don't have, I mean, it isn't a learning session. It's a session of being joyous for what we have in God and giving glory to God and giving praise. So those 3 scrolls are different than the other scrolls because the other scrolls all have just one book attached to them. Okay, so anyway, those 3 scrolls are most clearly identified with the Tanakh because those 3 scrolls, 3 parts, and there's law, prophecy, and writings, or foundation, fruit, glory, separated into different books. And so this is really this is the essence of the mystery that and points out our present day Bible with the 66 books, 27 on the west, and 27 on the east, and 12 in the center is the other side of the mystery. But this is where the mystery. This is where the three pieces, the mystery of the three pieces, comes in the separation of the name Tanakh. Now, there was an interesting thing, four interesting things that happened in the year 30 A.D. of a fulfillment of Zechariah's prophecy, and nobody really seems to. I mean, you don't really notice it when you read Zechariah. I mean, you don't really notice it, but it says Zechariah 11:1. Open thy doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour thy cedars. The cedars came from Lebanon. The cedars of the temple, the doors of the temple, came from Lebanon. So that's the reference to Lebanon. It's a reference to the temple itself, and this was understood. And I got this from windowview.org, and when I was doing the video on Zechariah, the virtue of Jesus being the ransom for many. Anyway, there was this quote in the Talmud. We read in the Jerusalem Talmud, 40 years before the destruction of the temple, the western light went out. The crimson thread, these are the four things. The crimson thread remained crimson, and the lot for the Lord always came up in the left hand. They would close the gates of the temple by night, and in the morning found them wide open. What they were seeing was the fulfillment of that verse in Zechariah about the fire. Open your doors, that the fire may devour your cedars. And this was a prophecy of 70 A.D. It started in 40 years. These doors were opening, and they were doing it all by themselves. God was open. The angels were opening them up. So there's that fulfillment. I mean, have you ever, when you read that, did you think that? No, you hadn't. You had to know that happened, and it was written down in the Talmud. One good thing about the Talmud. Those are the good things about the Talmud. That help us, actually. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the part that I want to talk about here is the western light went out. Okay. In fact, we are told in the Talmud that at dusk, the lamps that were unlit in the daytime, and then it has the middle four lamps remained unlit, while the two eastern lamps normally stayed lit during the day. In the day, you had they put out four middle lamps, and they used the western lamp. Why they had two others on the eastern? They didn't do that. I don't know why, but they used the western lamp to light the four lights that were out, that they put out in the day. So this was a ritual they did every day. They put the four out, and the light of the west to light them out. So this happened every night for 40 years, over 12,500 nights in a row. The main lamp of the temple lampstand. They called it the main lamp because they wanted to make sure that lamp had the oil. They were very, very cautious about making sure that lamp doesn't, has enough oil to light. And here it is, going out. It has the oil, but it goes out every night for 40 years. That happened in 30 A.D., which was the year that Jesus was crucified. And the same thing with the doors, and the same thing with those. I want to say more about introducing to you about, before we see the clip on Hosea, which explains more of Ephraim needing salvation. I just want to get a couple of verses before we get there. Hosea 4:17 through 19. He says, Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone. Their drink is sour. They have committed whoredom continually. Her rulers have shame, with shame do love. Give ye the wind that has bound her up in her wings. And they shall be ashamed because of their sacrifices. Thou shalt have no graven image before me. I am a jealous God. Okay, so idolatry is fornication, is the same thing as a husband's wife going out and committing adultery. It's the same thing. We're jealous. Men are jealous of their wives, and they don't want them to do that. When they do it, it's a lot of burning in the man's chest, and the burning. God has that same exact feeling. He's expressing His hurt when we worship idols. Hosea 5:9 and 10. Ephraim shall be desolate in the day of rebuke, and among the tribes of Israel have I made known that which shall surely be. 10. The princes of Judah that were like the princes of Judah now were like them that remove the bound. Therefore I will pour out my wrath upon them like water. So both Ephraim, the northern tribe, and Judah, the southern tribe, both of us are guilty of idolatry. Now, Hosea 5:11 and 12. Ephraim is oppressed and broken in judgment, because he willingly walked after the commandment. Therefore will I be unto Ephraim as a moth, and to the house of Judah as rottenness. So, how would a woman like their husband as regarding them as rottenness, and as a moth eating up their clothes and not clothing them correctly and all that stuff? All right. Now, let's go to Hosea 6:1 through 3. Okay, he says, Come and let us return unto the Lord, for he has torn, and he will heal us. He has smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days will he revive us. In the 3rd day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. And then shall we know, if we follow on to know the Lord. His going forth is prepared in the morning, and he shall come unto us as the rain, as the latter and the former rain unto the earth. I want you to look at this here. And to me, it's very interesting. Because verse 2, he says, After 2 days will he revive us. Now, a day is as 1,000 years. And he rose up into heaven. He overcame death in 30 A.D. So 2,000 years later is going to be 2030, which is 6 more years. So I think it's because the last 7 years are going to begin. I think they're going to begin this April, this Nissan 1, this April. It's April 9th or 10th, something like that, in our calendar. And it's the beginning of Nissan. It's the day that I thought. The next video I'm going to put out is going to be an update. Wisdom wants to know when is the video that I'm going to update, because when I was doing this knocked me on the head here. 2 days he will revive us. In the 3rd day he will raise us up. So the beginning of the 3rd day is 2030 A.D. if a day is as 1,000 years. And we have 1,000 years on that 3rd day. We have 1,000 years millennium. It's just too much there. And I went right over that when I first read it, and when I read it a couple of times. Now it hits me, and I'm glad it hit me. Okay, the next verse, Hosea 8, verse 7. For they, meaning Ephraim, have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. You know the expression, you reap what you sow. So if they sowed wind, which is nothing, and they're going to reap in abundance because they're they're favored by God. So when whatever they reap, they're going to get back in abundance. So they're going to get back they reaped with the wind. They're going to get back in abundant wind with a whirlwind, and it has no stalk. In other words, wind doesn't grow a stalk. So you're not going to get a stalk. The bud shall yield no meal. There's whatever buds is not going to be any kind of a food. If so be it yield the strain. Even if it did yield bread or something, a stranger will swallow it up. So in other words, they're out of his graces right now in this. They can get back into his graces, though. And they do. But
to the arms of the ever-loving God and be saved, as Cassiopeia represents. Okay, so let's start reading. We'll start the first chapter, Hosea 1:1. Now the word of the Lord that came unto Hosea, the son of Beeri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel. Now Jeroboam reigned, I think, 40 years, so he was king of Israel for 40 years. And you might say he was the one responsible, but the people are responsible as well. Anyway, so that's the time frame, verse 2. The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, Go, take thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms. For the land has committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. So Israel has become a model. Samaria, you could say Samaria has become a model city of mystery woman Babylon, mother of whores, mother of harlots. Okay? 3. So he went and he took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, which conceived and bare him a son. Now, Gomer, the word in Hebrew there, means finished, put an end to it. Diblaim means fig cakes. So, fig cakes, Ephraim was a fruitful one. That may have to do with something that the idea that the daughter of Israel is as a whore, as a wife of whoredoms. So anyway, she conceived and bare him a son. And the Lord said to him, Call his name Jezreel, for yet a little while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. So you see that, and will cause to cease. We'll put a stop to it. That's the Gomer in there. That's her name, Gomer. He's going to cause to cease, put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. So the days of the kings of Israel are right now numbered. All right? And he's looking at the specific sin that he's looking at is the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu. Now, this may have been because when Jehu took over, see, Jehu wasn't the one who, Ahab and Jezebel, a daughter of the mother of harlots, was the one who was responsible for the blood that spilled in Jezreel. Naboth was the one who was stoned by her. See why he's pointing at Jehu, because Jehu was to me, he was the one who did what he had to do to get the kingdom out of Ahab's family. Okay, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said to him, call her name Lo Ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel. But I will utterly take them away. Okay, so Lo Ruhamah means without mercy, no mercy, no mercy. And then he's prophesying here about I will utterly take them away, meaning that's the prophecy that there is going to be 10 lost tribes. And then in 7 he says, but I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, nor by horses, nor by horsemen. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. That's the type of thing that is saying. Now when she had weaned, 8, now when she had weaned Lo Ruhamah, she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, call his name Lo Ami, for you are not my people, and I will not be your God. So Lo Ami is not my people. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass in the place where it was said, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, you are the sons of the living God. There is the saved woman, Lo Ami. She's the bound in need of salvation woman. They were not his people. He will not be their God, and he will not have mercy upon them. But you see in verse 10, then surfaces the vision of the saved woman. Hosea 11, then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together, and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel.
Now where was it said, you are not my people? That was in the valley of Jezreel. Okay? And Jezreel means God sows seed. And in that valley, you also are going to be called sons of the living God. So that's where the sin was, and that's where the salvation is. The parable of the sower. God sows. And the man hears, and he hears words that cause his salvation. He hears the gospel, and the gospel is salvation. He hears the good news about Jesus, and he takes them into his ears, and it sows into his heart, and puts them in the good soil, and it grows, and it overcomes persecution, it overcomes cares and riches, but it's in good soil, and it bears fruit, like his name, Ephraim.
Now, Jezreel was the place where the kingdom of Israel stopped, and Jezreel is the place where the children of Israel will be gathered to and combined with Judah once more. Okay, and it's looking back at Ezekiel saying, "Son of man, can these bones live?" That's what this is referring. I think this is referring to. It's referring to the resurrection. This is during the time of the millennium. Let's go to chapter 2. Now it changes around. Again, this is now looking like the saved woman. Say to your brethren, Ami, you're my people. And to your sisters, Ruhama, I have mercy on you. Plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. So now he's talking to the children of the mother, and he's changing their name from Lo Ami to Ami, and from Lo Ruhama to Ruhama. And he's asking them, they must be grown and talking and able to talk, that their mother, okay, she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. Let her therefore put away her whoredoms out of her sight, and her adulteries from between her breasts. Lest I strip her naked, and set her as in the day that she was born, and make her as a wilderness, and set her as a dry land, and slay her with thirst. And I will not have mercy upon her children, for they be the children of whoredoms. Again, this is the tied up woman here. This is the woman in bondage, in the bondage of sin. 5. For their mother has played the harlot. She that conceived them has done shamefully, for she said, I will go after my lovers that give me my bread and my water and my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. So she's having all these nice things, and she's saying that her lovers are giving it to her. That is making God very jealous, because he's the one who's doing it. Therefore, behold, I will hedge up thy ways with thorns. I will make a wall that she shall not find her paths. Okay, so he's making it hard for her. And she shall follow after her lovers, but she shall not overtake them. And she shall seek them, but she shall not find them. Then shall she say, I will go and return to my first husband, for then it was better with me than now. And 8, for she did not know that I gave her corn and wine and oil, and multiplied her silver and her gold, and prepared which they prepared for Baal. So God is giving them all of the nice things, and they're taking those nice things God gave them and preparing it for Baal, which means the husband. Notice she said, my first husband. I'll go back to my first husband. This Baal is her second husband, her adulterous husband, who is not God, who is not the one that provides for her, who is going to have an end as well. Therefore will I return and take away my corn in the time thereof. When it's time for corn, guess what? It's not ready. There is no corn. My wine in season thereof, guess what? There's no wine. Recover my wool, my flax, and given to cover her nakedness. She can't even cover her nakedness with wool and flax. And now will I discover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of my hand. I will also cause all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, and all her solemn feasts. So here she is. She has no mirth, no joy. The joy is he's taking her joy away. He's taking her feast days, her new moons. You know that this is the things that they did and they enjoyed in God. He's taking them away. I will destroy her vines and her fig trees, of which she had said, these are my rewards that my lovers have given me. So she is not crediting God for her vines and her fig trees. Now God is saying, I will make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. That's who's going to eat the grapes and the figs. 13, and I will visit upon her the days of Baal, wherein she burned incense to them, and she decked herself with her earrings and her jewels, and she went after her lovers, and she forgot me, says the Lord. 14, therefore, behold, I will allure her, and bring her into the wilderness, and speak comfortably to her. So now, he's speaking comfortably to her. See, the fisher of men takes the bondage woman and is speaking comfortably to her now. 15. And I will give her her vineyards from thence, and the valley of Achor for a door of hope, and she shall sing there, as in the days of her youth, as in the days when she came up out of the land of Egypt. Remember, they sang, Miriam got the tambourine, and they sang, the horse and the rider drowned into the sea. And so they're going to sing. She's going to get her joy back. There's going to be a time when the adulterous woman who is going to have no vines anymore, have her vines again. A door of hope. She'll be singing. She'll have her joy back. And 16, and it shall be at that day, said the Lord, that thou shalt call me Ishi, and shalt no more call me Baali. That's more like, Ishi is more like my mate, my husband, my companion. Baali it can mean husband, but it looks to me like this is a husband in a cruel husband way. 2:17, for I will take away the names of Baalim out of her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. And in that day will I make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven, and with the creeping things on the ground. And I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the earth, and I will make them to lie down safely. So remember, it's beat your swords into plowshares. Okay, that's the time of the millennium again. And I will betroth thee unto me forever. There's a marriage going on, renewing of vows maybe. I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness, and in judgment, and in loving kindness, and in mercies. This is the woman of Cassiopeia, the bride of the Lamb, married. I will even betroth thee unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. And it shall come to pass in that day, and when he says thou shalt know the Lord, that's his Yud-He-Vav-He name. 21, and it shall come to pass in that day, I will hear, said the Lord. Now, I will hear the heavens, and they shall hear the earth. When he says I will hear the heavens, he's talking about the communication with the angels. I think he's talking about communication with the angels who are communicating with the earth. And 22, and the earth shall hear the corn and the wine and the oil, and they shall hear Jezreel. Now Jezreel, the Lord sows. The kingdom of God is as a sower that sows the gospel, the good news. And that good news gets planted in the ears, and it sprouts into fruit, and that fruit becomes a blessing to everyone, including the one without whom it's growing out of. Okay? And this is all happening in that valley of Jezreel, where they are all gathered. Don't forget, Jezreel is in the same area as Armageddon. So a lot of all of this is happening on the last time, in the last days, actually after the first resurrection. At the time of the first resurrection as well. 23, and I will sow unto her, remember Jezreel, and now he's saying it, I will sow her unto me in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. So she's going to be Ruhama and not Lo Ruhama. And I will say to them which were not my people, Lo Ami, thou art my people, Ami, and they shall say, thou art my God.
Vahu Yomer Elohei.
All right, let's go to chapter 3. This short little chapter, he says, Then says the Lord unto me, Go, yet love a woman beloved of her friend, yet an adulteress, according to the love of the Lord toward the children of Israel, who look to other gods and love flagons of wine. 2. So I brought her to me for 15 pieces of silver, and for a homer of barley, and a half a homer of barley. So that's a lot of bushels of barley right there, many bushels of barley. And I said unto her, Thou shalt abide for me many days. Thou shalt not play the harlot, and thou shalt not be for another man, and so I will also be for thee. Okay, so now this is a woman that he wants her to take a woman out of the adultery type of women, but different than most of them, because she's going to be of the type that has a strong love for a man, and that man has a strong love for her. And he says, just like the love that the Lord has for the children of Israel, the same ones that look to other gods and love flagons of wine. So he wants to put a stop to that. Now he's in the saving process of the woman in the bondage of sin, and he's going to start removing her from that bondage of sin by buying her, where he is in complete command, and she's now not going to play the harlot, and she's also not going to be for another man. So it's just going to be, and also I will be for you. So it's just going to be her and him, or God and the woman Israel, getting saved out of the bondage of sin. In verse 4, For the children of Israel shall abide many days. Now this is the time. There's two times that this could be, and it may be both of them. I don't know. It may represent both of them, where the children of Israel were lost in Assyria and in the other nations, where they were taken captive into the other nations. And also it could be the time from the time that the temple was destroyed until these days now. But they're described like this. The children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, without a prince, without a sacrifice, without an image, without an ephod, and without teraphim. So all of those things they have when they have their temple, and also when at least the temple was in the vicinity, they didn't really associate too much with the temple, because they had their calf gods, and they had their priests, and they also had their false gods. So that's when they were in the bondage of sin. But now they're going to be in Assyria, where they're not going to have a king, they're not going to have a prince, they're not going to have a sacrifice. They're just going to be there, and they're not going to have they're not going to play the harlot, because they're not going to be, they're not going to have an identity of the people of God anymore. They're just going to be lost. They're just going to be as lost children. So they're not going to be able to sin, because they don't really have a husband. But they do have a husband in a way. And the 144,000 they don't recognize Jesus as their Savior, but He is their Savior, and they will see Him, like the children of Jacob, the 11 brothers, eventually saw who their brother was. 5. Now this is representing again the saved women. Now this is going to say, Afterwards shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and His goodness in the latter days. Right there it's telling you it's in the latter days, and I see this as after the resurrection, where in the millennium, where David and David's priest and the two The northern kingdom and the southern kingdom are both together as one, as they were in the time of David, and they are fearing the Lord their God and the love of God, and then they're His people, and He is their God. Okay, it's again saying, giving that saved Cassiopeia, bride of Christ, bride of the Lamb, symbolism. Okay, let's go to the next chapter.
And they will be giving testimony for 42 months, 1,260 days. They're both the same. They're going to be killed after that time during the 43rd month. And it says that they are both killed and they are left unburied for 3.5 days. Now that 3.5 days, by the way, can be considered to be times dividing the times, which would put him towards the end, unburied towards the end, and after that they are both seen by all to go up into heaven. And this is right before Jesus is coming back, because the last trump is right after the sixth trump. All right? So that's something you got to see, because there are going to be two witnesses. What they are going to do is they are going to bear witness to salvation of Jesus Christ, our Messiah. Okay, they're going to bear witness where if you had any desire to love God, you would listen to them and hear them, and you would turn and you would repent. And that's what they're going to be doing. Ron Wyatt, Lord helped him find where the ark, Noah's Ark, was. The Lord helped him know where the children crossed Red Sea, where that site was. He helped tell where Mount Sinai is still. And he gave proof. So this is all on his website. The main one that the Lord helped him find is the Ark of the Covenant. And they were when he was down there. And by the way, it was right under Mount Golgotha. That was where he found it. And there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake that caused a crack, and his blood and mixed with water went down the crack of the earthquake caused, and it went right onto the mercy seat. And the angels that were down there instructed him to take the dried blood, because he saw dried blood, both on the ceiling and on the mercy seat itself, and it was on the western side, by the way, of the mercy seat. They instructed him to take the blood sample and go to an Israeli lab and have it examined, and they found 1 male chromosome and 22 female. So that would absolutely fit. And they were surprised that it was still that it would revived, and it gave them all that information. So this was a miracle. This was something this is a witness to the world. You don't believe it? You didn't see it? Okay, it's like you're like Thomas. Okay, now here's the proof. And besides that, he's going to have the two tables of testimony, the 2 Ten Commandments tablets that Moses received on the mountain the second time. And of course, they were in the ark. That's all. I just wanted you guys to know that you're going to recognize those 2 witnesses. They're going to be very unique. They're going to have, if they're not Moses and Elijah reincarnated, they will be men that have the spirit of Elijah, similar to John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. Let's do it all over again. And that's about it. It is very soon, by the way, people. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. We'll win. God will never forsake us. He will never leave us nor forsake us, even to the end of the world.